Hello everyone, my name's Nisha and I am the YogicAmnesiac, and as you can see I have a mat rolled out behind me and we're definitely doing a routine today. So today's routine is much more of a beginner routine than most of my routines. In fact, we're going to take it really slow, work on basic poses, and really go in depth into each pose we do and take our time to learn about them, learn how our body feels in each one and everything like that. I encourage you, if you are intermediate or advanced, to still do this practice because it's a really good way. Maybe if you've gotten out of practice, you haven't done yoga for a while like me right now, this is a really good way to get back in, remember all the things you need to remember so you can build from there. It's also really important always to revisit basics and fundamentals though, no matter your level, because that can really take your practice from being pretty good to like a really good strong routine, especially since poses really build upon each other, and touching on the basics is always a good idea. One last thing before we get started, I'm going to be teaching 3 classes at 3 different libraries. It's 1 class per library, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be in Monterey County in California this summer in July. I'll put the dates and locations down in the description below. So for those of you who know me or who live in this area, come and check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do a higher level routine than what we're doing today, but it will still be beginner friendly and we're still going to have a ton of fun. So come join me with that, and with that being said, let's get started. Alright, so today we're going to start in a seated position. As a lot of you may know, I'm a really big fan of a cross-legged position, but you can also kneel if you would like, if that's more comfortable. You're also welcome to switch it up in the middle if you need to, but this is just my favorite position to start in, and it's the one I find easiest for what we're going to be doing today. So start out by closing your eyes, sit up nice and tall, roll your shoulders back. And before I start talking you through what you should be trying to do and what you should be experiencing, I want you to take a moment to just think about what your body's doing, get comfortable, settle in, and take a moment to just feel where you are, what's going on in your own body. And don't freak out about being in a certain position yet. This is a moment to think about yourself, what you want out of this practice, if you're looking for anything in specific. Like I said though, do try to sit up straight, but I'm not going to get into too many specifics just yet. Take some nice long deep breaths here and really relax. You can put your hands wherever they feel comfortable. There's no rules about that. If you're familiar with setting intentions for your practice, you can go ahead and set some intentions. If you have a mantra or anything like that that you'd like to say to yourself, repeat to yourself, or think to yourself, this is a good time to do that as well. So from here, you really want to think about sitting up nice and tall. Like I said, roll the shoulders back and down. Your shoulder blades almost want to feel like they're squeezing together a little bit. Your shoulders are open, your chest is open. But be mindful you're not tilting your chin up towards the ceiling. You're not throwing your head back. You might even want to think about tucking your chin slightly because you want to think about your neck, the back of your neck being very long and tall. We're trying to keep the bones aligned. You also want to think about this bending, which you actually have going on at the hips or in your pelvis area, kind of coming from there as opposed to your back. You want your whole back to be strong and straight. Your core should be doing work, as in your abs around your belly, and your low back. In fact, if you're very new to yoga, you may feel your low back doing a lot of work right now. So once more, we're just going to settle into this. Take some time to think about what muscles are working. And you may be finding that a lot more muscles than you thought would be working in this pose are working. Once you feel comfortable and you feel like you're not struggling, if you can, try to quiet your mind and just focus on breathing. Or if you need to, you can focus on sitting up tall or revisit your intentions, mantra, anything that you thought about just a couple seconds ago. From here, if your eyes were shut, you can slowly and gently open them. Keep your gaze relaxed, which I know sounds weird if you're a beginner, but don't widen your eyes completely. Don't think about looking around the room. Just think about maybe finding a point on the ground and resting your eyes on that. I want you to inhale here and sweep the arms up out to your sides, up and overhead, and you can look up with your hands. And now palms facing, you're going to sit up nice and tall. The same muscles are working here. Your core around your belly will be very engaged. Your back will be engaged. You may feel a slight arch of the back, but we're not letting it curve a ton. It's just a very gentle arch. You want those arms to be up as straight as you can get them, palms facing each other. And this is a time where you can tilt the chin up towards the ceiling or the sky just a little bit to really open up the front of the body here. I'm going to turn sideways so you guys can see what I mean about my back and all sorts of things. So if you can notice, I do have a slight arch in my back, just a tiny one. Like I said, we're not leaning our whole body back. It's just a slight opening up of the front of your body. And a slightly elevated chin. And from here, relax and lower your arms all the way down to the ground. Relax your gaze again, but be sure we're still sitting up nice and tall. No slouching or anything like that. We're going to do that once more. But first, take a moment to relax. It's really weird how that can make your arms a little bit tired or your back a little bit tired. So do take a moment here to rest. And if you're like me and you have something behind you, a wall, a couch, you can scoot back and lean against that if you need to. Again, focus on keeping your back straight though. So get the low back or the pelvis, this big flat bone in your back, as close to the wall or whatever as possible to really help yourself sit up nice and tall. If you were against a wall, I now encourage you to move forward again if you can. If you really need that support, continue using that wall though. Again, we're going to inhale and sweep the arms up and overhead, but this time we're going to interlace our fingers. And it's very common to keep your index fingers pointed out like this. And now from here you can lean back just a little bit more. You'll find that it's actually quite challenging to lean back very far in this pose. It's a lot of muscles working as opposed to your spine stretching or your abs stretching. Exhale here, and then inhale, and use your abs, your core, to just bring yourself back up. From here, we'll exhale, float the arms down, place them alongside your body. Use them to support yourself if you need a little break. You need to relax your back, go back to your wall, to your chair, whatever you were leaning against if you need to, and take another few seconds to rest and relax. From here, we're going to place the right hand, palm down, off the side of the right hip. If I drew a straight line off my right hip, it would go straight through the center of my hand. So we're going to place it there. Hopefully you can reach the ground here. If you can't, you can always fold a blanket, put a book under your hand. Anything with height will work to place under your hand. And then from here, we're going to turn our left hand palm facing up towards the sky. Straighten the arm, reach it up and overhead, and lean over to the right side. If you are more advanced, you could probably put your elbow on the ground. And if you're not, and you're just hanging out on a book or with your hand on the floor, there's nothing wrong with that either. Now in this pose, we really want to focus on keeping this left sit bone or left buttock down on the ground, your left butt cheek. So maybe you have a very little bit of a stretch and you're really working on getting the shape of the pose right first, which is very important. So if you're only feeling a tiny bit of a stretch, but you're working on getting the shape right, that's just as good. But as you get more advanced, you'll find the shape is easier and you can get more of a stretch eventually. You want to think about really stretching up through this arm. Don't let it be limp. Keep it strong and straight. I like to really reach out with my fingers in this pose. Take a moment to check and make sure your left shoulder is directly above your right shoulder or stacked. Not necessarily vertically like in a line, but that they are, if you were squished between a wall or two walls, you want your shoulders to be in line. And really stretch here. And then inhale and come on up. Roll the shoulders out. Relax a little bit for a moment. Let the blood come back to your left arm. Wiggle your fingers if you need a little help getting blood back. And so if you're like me right now and your legs are crossed, switch which leg is in front, place it behind the other. It's really good to practice switching which leg is in front so one leg doesn't get more of a stretch than the other. And I find this pose can really benefit from things like switching your legs and whatnot. Once you've switched your legs, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to take our left hand, plant it off our left hip, same placement as the right hand except on the opposite side, of course. And we'll again sweep our right hand out with the palm up and bring it up and overhead. And one thing I forgot to mention last time is as you get into this pose, you may notice your hand can slide out a little bit. If you're flexible enough, you may not be, and you may just leave your hand right where you placed it and get a stretch right here. And like I said before, even if you're not feeling a stretch here, but you're working on the shape of the pose and working on how to properly do the pose, that's just as important as getting the stretch and the benefits of the pose. Doing a pose wrong is actually very bad for your body and not so good for you. Another thing you may be noticing right now is that one side of your body is a lot tighter than the other side. For me, you may notice that I can't even get my left elbow on the ground, no matter how hard I try. The right side of my body is very tight, and for you, the right side of your body might be not as tight. It might be the looser side of your body. But generally speaking, almost everyone, if not everyone, has slight differences in the sides of their body. So again, think about really pushing down into this right hip and stretching this right hand up and overhead. Make sure these shoulders are in line. You're not letting your right shoulder cave in or twirl back. You want to keep them nice and straight. Be strong here in this pose. Really reach out Some people like to think about energy going all the way up that side of their body, and that helps them either imagine or, feel what they're doing a little bit better. Then from here we'll inhale and come on up. And then again we're going to take a moment to revisit our first pose. Sit up nice and tall. Use the wall if you need to. Or if you're already at the wall, absolutely take advantage of it. Revisit anything you had thought about at the beginning of the practice, things you want to get out of this practice, your mantras, your intentions, all sorts of things you can revisit now, or simply focus on your breathing, thinking about getting longer inhales and longer exhales. From here, we're going to flip onto all fours. I'll flip this way. And come into a tabletop position. For this position, there are a few things to think about, which seems odd. You might think that it's an easy position, and it is more simple, but there are still things we have to be mindful of and pay attention to. One of the first things you want to be mindful of is your shoulder above your elbow, above your wrist. You want to have all of that in a straight line, and then when you think those are about there, it can be hard to gauge sometimes. You want to make sure your knees are directly below your hips. So first, check in with the hands, shoulder width apart as well as directly below the shoulders. And the hips can be kind of weird for some people. They find that they feel they have wider hips than others, and so they have a tendency to go wider. So here you can see, you would think that maybe my hips would be out here, so I would have to have my knees here. But actually your hips, you think more about the bones, and the bones will run straight down your body. So you want your legs to go straight out of your hip socket as opposed to your knees being on the outside of your hips. So just because you have curvier hips does not mean that your knees need to be significantly wider than the person, anyone else. There's a person with you. I was about to say the person next to you, but you might be alone. So you can see that I do have fairly narrow hips, and if you do have wider hips than me, your knees might be a little bit wider apart, but they really, from person to person, it actually does not vary that much unless there's a huge size difference in height and size. All sorts of things will dictate your hip width. So again, think about those bones, where the bone is in your leg, and you want that to go straight down, not the outside of your hip. Then from here, you also want to think about your abs being a little bit engaged right now, keeping you sturdy, keeping your back flat. If your abs aren't engaged, you might be sagging and letting your back arch. So keep those abs a little bit engaged, and also push into the ground, which sounds weird because how can you really push the ground because it won't move? But you're pushing your shoulders, and you want your back to be pushing up as opposed to caving down and letting your shoulder blades squeeze together. You want to be pushing away from it. Obviously not so far that your back is rounding, but just enough to keep your back flat and your arms very strong. Take a few breaths here. And finally, before we move on to adding a little bit of movement to this pose, think about your elbows, and you do not want them to be locked or hyperextended like this. You want to keep them straight. So I know I just said a lot, so take a moment to just relax. Think about your body, where everything is. If you need to go back into the video and hear me talk about all that stuff again, this is a good moment to revisit that. There is a lot of information, and it can seem overwhelming, but As you learn it, slowly each little bit will become automatic in your body. If you can, have the tops of your feet flat on the mat. If you struggle to keep your ankles flat like this, you can roll up a blanket underneath them, or a towel, or even your mat you could roll up and put under your ankles just to give you a little bit of support so it's not so severe. But we do not need our toes tucked right now. So from here, as you inhale, you want to think about squeezing all these muscles in your core and your abs and tilting your pelvis, tucking it under so the front of your pubic bone is almost trying to meet your belly button, and then letting your upper back arch and your head drop towards the ground. And then as you exhale, we do the opposite, where you let your abs start to relax. Your pubic bone will go away from your belly button, so your pelvis is tilting back, throwing your butt into the air, letting your low back arch, and then finally scooping through with the shoulders and your upper back arching, and then your head and neck will be laxed. And you want to think of that almost like a wave passing through your body, starting here at the bottom of your body and moving, or the bottom of your spine, I should say, and moving up and ending with your head. And that actually can be very, very weird for beginners. It can be hard. So you can think about doing that, but if you can't, work it like a wave, or it doesn't feel like a wave, that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with moving it as a unit. So, again, and with your breath, just do this at your own pace. Inhale, engage those abs, tuck that pelvis, that pubic bone under towards the belly button, round the chest, the back, and drop the head. And then as you exhale, do the opposite, where you tilt your pelvis back, let your belly relax, arch your back, scoop that chest up and forward, and bring your head up. And this is the same guidelines as the other pose, and it's going to be the same for every pose, where if you're not feeling a stretch, but you're really working on getting the pose right, that's really, really important. So don't worry if you're kind of confused about, I'm not really feeling a stretch yet. Don't worry too much about that, and really focus on just working the pose and understanding how it works, because that's one of the most important parts for a good foundation. So with your breath, keep going, moving really, really slowly. And if you find that you really like being in one position, then absolutely hang out there. And this is a fun time. Once you think you've gotten the movement back and forth, the inhale with the rounding, the exhale with the arching of the back, you can kind of move around with it a little bit. And you can come back to a neutral here and, wag your tail side to side, as we like to say sometimes, and move your spine in a different direction. Throw your hips out to the left and look to the left. Throw your hips out to the right and look to the right. It's important, if you're doing this though, that your back is not severely arched or severely rounded. You're just moving it a little bit from the tabletop position. We did already move our spine side to side though, so there's no reason you need to warm up, but it can feel really good and it can teach you about your body, and that's very important. So if you'd like to take the time, absolutely do this, or keep flexing and arching your back and moving around. When you're satisfied and you've moved all about, we're going to return to this strong tabletop position. If your wrists are feeling tired, you can always come onto your fists. And that's, a good way to compensate so that you can still do this, but you don't have to have such a harsh bend in the wrist. It can really be taxing for some people, especially if you have weak wrists or carpal tunnel. So revisiting here again, thinking about being strong, check in with your alignment. And from here, we're going to move into probably one of the most famous yoga poses, downward facing dog. For many people, depending on the proportions of your body, you can tuck your toes from a normal tabletop position, send your buttocks and your butt back into the air, and lift your knees and get into a downward facing dog. But for me, I think it's because I have very long arms, it just doesn't work for me. So I actually like to walk my hands forward just a little bit, about, one hand length forward. And if you are new to yoga, that might be very beneficial for you, in that it'll give you more space to work with rather than throwing you into a very harsh position so early on. So if you'd like to, you can walk your hands forward. You're also welcome to try to get into it from a tabletop position and adjust later. So constantly adjust, constantly do what you need to. So we're going to tuck our toes, push into our hands, push our whole body back, and let our knees rise up. And then push our chest forward. Some people like to say, think about getting your arms by your ears, but what you're doing is pushing your chest forward so that your arms can go towards your ears, or past your ears, or be at your ears, or in front of your ears, wherever your body lets you be. Think about having a nice long spine. You may notice my knees are a little bit bent here. If you can, straighten your knees and drop your heels, that's great. I have very tight hamstrings though. From here you can paddle at your feet a little bit, but really keep your arms strong. Think about using the muscles in your arm and your shoulders to hold your body up. Your abs will be kind of engaged, but sort of relaxed. A lot of strength coming from the feet. A lot of this pose is coming from your hands and feet, come to think of it. It's those supporting you, your arms pushing up, and then your bones will sort of do the rest and hold you there, especially as you get more flexible. So in this pose, we want the same alignment as we had in tabletop. Your hands should be about shoulder width apart. Your feet should be about hip width apart, and it's the same thing as before. Just because you think you have wide hips does not mean your feet need to be at the edge of your mat. It's thinking about the bones. And I know we're really holding this pose for a while, but I really want you to learn about it. So if you're getting tired and you need to, you can lower your knees here, release your toes out, and come into a child's pose with your arms straight out. And then you could place your head on the mat if you're feeling super tired. If you can, I encourage you to hold this downward dog just a little bit longer to really learn about your body. Maybe paddle your feet, push your chest forward, straighten your legs, alternate, figure out where your body is, where your limits are. Finally, we'll take one more inhale, exhale, lower the knees, and we will join all of our friends in child pose. Release the toes, sit your butt back on your heels, and we're going to let the arms relax in front of us or alongside our body, whichever one feels better for you, and then you can release your forehead to the floor and just take a couple moments to relax here. In this pose, your muscles do not need to be doing any work. You can just relax to the best of your ability. If you find that you need a blanket or a pillow to support your body on your thighs, you can do that. If you have a little bit extra belly fat, you can always walk your knees apart, or if you have larger breasts or anything like that, lean forward, and if you walk your knees apart, you'll find it'll make room for all that extra fat on our bodies. You can also just walk your knees apart if it feels comfortable for you. But from here, take a couple moments to revisit your intentions, anything you thought of during the practice or early on that you want to revisit. Relax here, or simply think about your breath for a couple moments. From here, we're going to roll on up. Take your time. Your head has been down towards the ground a lot, so come up very slowly as you need to. The slower you come up, the less your body is going to feel jarred out of the position, and your blood won't be freaking out on you, and you won't feel as lightheaded. You can feel lightheaded coming out of downward facing dog or even child's pose just because of how low your head was. So take your time, and we'll take a moment to sit here. Again, we'll sit up nice and tall. Looks generally straight forward or towards the end of your mat if your mat is the same direction as mine is right now. Take a moment to sit here, especially for beginners transitioning into or out of downward facing dog or anything where your head is very low can be very difficult. If you deal with blood pressure problems, this can also be very hard. So we're going to really take a moment here, let our blood get back to its normal state of us being upright. And in this pose, which is actually called warrior's pose, or hero's pose, excuse me, not warrior, hero's pose or virasana, you want to think about very similar things to the first pose which we were in, the cross-legged Sukhasana pose, where your back is up straight, your shoulders are rolled back, chin is slightly tucked because we're keeping the neck long, the back of the neck, the spine. And apart from that, it's very similar. You can put your hands wherever you'd like. You may feel your heart rate has risen a little bit. Your arms might be tired. Your legs might be tired. Your abs might be tired. All sorts of things might be going on with your body right now, especially for beginners, but I'm definitely feeling lots of sensations all over my body. If you have the energy to stick with me just a little bit longer, we'll power through this last little bit, and I'm sure you can do it. I have faith in you, but if you do need to stop, this is a good time to lie on your back and come into Shavasana, corpse pose, our final resting pose. From here, we're going to kick our legs out in front of us. And I will turn to face the camera here. This is another very good pose to do against a wall if you need the support. I often like to have a wall behind me, but I won't do it with a wall this time. This is a little bit harder than our first pose or the pose we were just doing. And if you have tight hamstrings and tight calves, this can be a very, very hard pose actually. And I know I struggled with it for a very long time, and I still don't find it to be an easy pose. I still find it to be very challenging. So what we do here is we sit up nice and tall, use those abs, use those belly muscles, use your low back muscles, try to keep your spine as straight as you can. And this is a good time to be against a wall because it gives us a little bit extra support so we can focus on getting stretches and other sensations rather than struggling and shaking through a pose. Keep your feet flexed here. You want your quads, these big muscles in your thighs, to be engaged. Flex them just a little bit. Maybe think about pulling your kneecaps up your leg just a tiny bit. They do not need to be completely flexed. We're not showing off our muscles here. From here, we'll inhale, raise our arms up and overhead, and think about trying to get taller as you're reaching up. And you may find this is very hard for you. Like I keep saying, this pose is actually very difficult for me. If you have shoulder issues, you may find that you can't actually bring your arms up parallel to your ears. I like to keep my arms just slightly in front of them or slightly out to the side, just for the comfort of my shoulders. But really work this pose. Use those muscles or use that wall, whatever you need to. If you are against a wall, still think about getting taller, using those muscles to stretch up. Just a few more breaths here. Really be strong all over your body. You will be feeling stretches probably, but this is a lot of muscle work as well. Exhale, release the arms. Put them alongside your body if you need to rest your back for a second. Keep these feet flexed though. And again, we'll sit up nice and tall. And now think about pulling your chest towards your toes or towards the wall across from you. Keeping that back straight, pulling those shoulders down away from you. And you may have noticed I barely moved forward, and that's because I have very tight legs. For some people, they can keep a flat back and fold all the way down. So if that's available to you, absolutely fold as far as you can, thinking about keeping your back flat, the bend coming from your hips, not your spine. And then relax forward, let your spine roll down. And you can reach farther forward here. Your hands can be wherever is comfortable. If you can grab your feet or your toes, your ankles, your shins, thighs, wherever. But this time you can round your back. And if you have a strap like me, you could actually loop it around your feet and use that. And that's actually a good way to help sit up nice and tall. It lets you pull your elbows out a little bit. But now we can round forward. If you are using a belt, keep your fingers relaxed. Just use it to help your body come forward. We don't have a death grip on it. We're just trying to use it to coax our body forward and really help us open up these tight muscles. Remember to keep your feet flexed, strap or no strap. Roll on up back to sitting up nice and tall. Again, if you did manage to get your head very low, you can feel a little bit lightheaded. I'm going to scoot back and use this chair as my support for now, just because we're going to be sitting like this a little bit longer. Like I said, there's no problem with using a wall if you need to use a wall or anything like that. So from here, sitting up nice and tall, we're going to send our legs out wide. They do not need to be that wide. Again, focus on learning the pose as opposed to getting the stretch first thing or pushing your body. I find once I open my legs up, I can sit up much taller because I'm stretching different muscles. So you may find this is easier than the previous pose we just did, Dandasana, or staff pose. But other people don't like this pose at all. So it's very, very different from person to person. So again, with the same seated thing, and you've probably noticed a trend that I tried to talk about in the opening of this video, that poses build upon each other. All these seated poses, we've really been using our cores, our bellies, and our backs just to sit up nice and tall, the same slight tuck of the chin to keep the spine tall when we first start. So do keep revisiting all these things, and like I said, it's confusing at first, but you realize that it's the same thing for every pose except for slight variations, so it's not so bad. So sit up nice and tall here, and the same thing as before with a flat back. We're going to push ourselves forward, open the chest towards the wall across from you. And you may have noticed I put my hands slightly behind me. I find that helps me push my chest up so that I don't cave in and round with my back. I'm keeping my back nice and tall as I push forward. And you may get a little bit of a stretch. Again, keep your feet flexed. Use all these muscles. Flexing your feet kind of reminds your entire leg to engage all sorts of muscles. And so that's why we do it, to protect all of our joints. And then from here, round over, come forward. And some people can be as flat as a pancake on the ground here. Other people, it's not so easy, so it's very different for everyone. We're going to roll on up, bring our legs together, And this time we're going to bring the soles of our feet together. Ooh, my hip just popped. And again, sitting up nice and tall, core engaged, back engaged, chin slightly tucked, shoulders rolled back and down, all that good stuff. Some people like to say your head is over your shoulders, over your spine, over your pelvis or hips. Just think about yourself being a nice tall wall. You want the wall to be up straight, not leaning to the side or leaning forward or anything. So you may find that your feet cannot get in as close to your pubic bone as me. Your feet might be out here and your knees might be up here, and that's absolutely fine. We all have to work with different things. And this is a pose that for some people their knees will just never touch the ground. It just doesn't happen because of the way your bones are built. So don't worry about where your knees are just yet. But this is a good moment to sit up nice and tall and give your feet a little bit of a massage. Thank them for all they've done for us over the years. Wow, our feet do a lot for us, don't they? They deserve a massage. You deserve a massage. You can thank your feet and yourself at the same time. Right from here, sit up nice and tall, lean the body forward. Again, thinking about keeping the chest going towards the wall in front of you almost. The spine is a nice long staff. It's straight. It's holding your body up. Your core is working. Your back is working. The muscles are working. And this is another pose where I like to sometimes put my hands behind myself to really push my back nice and straight. And you may really feel a stretch here in the front of your groin, inner thigh. Inner thigh, that's the word I was looking for. Also groin. All sorts of names for all sorts of body parts. Then from here, we'll roll on forward as far as you can come. When you come into this pose, rolling forward, keep your butt on the ground. Don't let your butt start rolling up or coming off the ground. Keep your sits bones, those two pointy bones in your butt on the ground. Roll on forward as far as you can go. And if you're very flexible, like in the previous two poses, you might be able to just pancake down, as I like to call it. You can put your arms one on top of the other and rest your head. Hands one on top of the other, or if you really like to and are very flexible, you can just put your head straight on the ground. Take a few moments here to really enjoy this stretch. I love hip openers. Maybe sway your shoulders and head side to side if you can. We're going to start relaxing a little bit here, winding our bodies down. On your next inhale, roll on up, push into those hands to help your body come up. And then we're going to turn so we are facing a long way on our mat if you're not already turned that way. And we will lie down on our backs. Oh, my bun is in my way. Okay. So from here we're going to actually keep our legs bent. Bring our knees into our chest. Hug them in if you can. This is another time you can use a strap. Place it on your shins, on the backs of your thighs. You can also use your hands to hold onto the backs of your thighs. Or you can hug in your legs with your arms if that's available to you. Rock a little side to side. This is like child's pose, except I guess we could call it like a turtle pose, except there's already a turtle pose. I just think of a turtle on its back, rocking side to side. Alright, from here we're going to lower our left foot to the ground And if you have a strap, this is a good time to grab it, place it on the ball of your foot. I will first show you how to do this pose without a strap though. From here, you can straighten your leg up and bring it as if you're trying to stand on the ceiling. And if you do need support like you would to have a strap, we'll take our fingers, clasp them behind our thigh. And if you're going to pull your leg, pull your elbows out and away from your body. Keep your shoulders open. Don't let your shoulders hunch up or pull forward. Keep them back towards the mat. If you're using a strap, place it on the ball of your foot and extend it out. And you want your arms to be out to the side and nice and relaxed. Grip once again like before. I'm going to do it this way. I actually really like this way. I thought I would want the strap. So in this pose, we want to keep our feet flexed, our legs strong. And if it's available to you, we're going to take our left leg and straighten it on the floor. And now we'll have both feet flexed. And we'll just hold this pose for a second. Really be strong in that right leg and those arms if you're using them. You can also just have your arms alongside your body. Whatever works for you. Take a couple deep breaths here. All right, from here we're going to engage our core a little bit, our bellies. Bend that left knee and bring that left foot back to the ground. And then bend this right knee into our chest and drop the right foot back to the ground. Take a moment here to relax. Get the blood flow back into your right foot. Get it flowing back down the way our bodies are made to. And then we're going to switch and do the opposite leg. Exactly the same things. You can grab the back of the thigh, use a strap, whatever works best for you. So from here, engage your core a little bit to bring that leg up. Clasp the back of the thigh, use your strap from here, whichever works, and straighten that leg. Send that foot up to the ceiling, the sky. You're trying to stand on it. Really stretch it out here. This is another pose where you may find one side is significantly tighter than the other or different. It feels different. That is completely normal. It happens to everyone. Almost no one has exactly the same sides of their body. There are slight differences, and there's nothing wrong with that. From here, we'll engage our core a little bit to send that right leg out long. And now we have both of our feet flexed, both of our legs as straight as they can be. I can definitely feel my left leg is much tighter than my right leg was. Just take a moment here to breathe. Really use those muscles to straighten that leg up towards the sky. Hold it for a couple more breaths. And then from here, we'll engage our core. Bend that right knee, bring that right foot into the ground. Bend that left knee into the chest. Send that left foot down to the ground. Let your arms relax alongside your body. Take a moment here to rest. Let the blood get back to your left foot this time. Maybe sway your knees side to side. Relax the low back. And then let your knees drop all the way to the right side and come into this pretty gentle twist. This is a pose where you may need to put something underneath your knees just for a little bit extra support. Or if you can, just relax with your leg on the ground. Once again, engage your core. Bring those knees up to center. And then drop them over to the left side. I'll scoot over a little. And once again, you may need to put something under your knees. If you did it on one side, I recommend you do it on the other. We like to keep the sides as similar as we can. Take a few breaths here. Let your body completely relax here. Now finally engage your core, bring those knees up. Send your feet out nice and long. Let them flop out. Your feet can be completely relaxed now. I like to send my feet out a little bit wider than my hips. I like to think of waves of relaxation almost going over my body, letting me relax. Relaxing my feet, my calves, my shins, your knees, thighs. Let your core and your stomach and back all relax. Let your shoulders fall open and your arms and hands feel heavy. Then relax your face, your eyes, your cheeks, eyebrows, mouth. It can be nice to swallow a few times. It can help relax your throat a little bit. And from here, just enjoy these last few moments of the video to let your body rest and restore from our practice today.